Nah, bro. Weird shit, bro. Weird? You know this is dead, bro. What I do? We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk now. Did somebody come? Oh, say what?
Cam Newton is exposing a lot of stuff right now, and really, it's all coming together. From the Shedeur Sanders treatment to the Colin Kaepernick treatment, Cam Newton is basically exposing NFL owners who are intentionally blackballing. But it gets even crazier than imagined. Shedeur's slide in the draft had been suggested to be an off-field situation. There were many reports questioning his attitude and character.
It was the slide seen round the world. Round after round, all eyes were on Shedeur Sanders, whose name was never called until the 5th round of the NFL draft Saturday, when the Cleveland Browns made Sanders the second quarterback they draft over the weekend. The Browns traded up with the Seattle Seahawks to select Sanders with the 144th overall pick.
I just say the biggest thing for us, we live by our board. We felt like he was a good, solid prospect at the most important position. We felt like it got to a point where he was probably mispriced, relative to the draft. Really the acquisition cost was pretty light, and it's a guy that we think can outproduce his draft slot. So I wouldn't say it's any more than that. Obviously Shedeur has kind of grown up in the spotlight, but our expectation is for him to come in here and work and compete. Nothing's been promised. Nothing will be given.
Okay, let's just put it this way. Do I believe that he was worse than Dillon Gabriel, who I love? I love Dillon Gabriel as a person. Watched him live as a player multiple times. No, he's better than Dillon Gabriel.
That's right.
He's a better football player than Dillon Gabriel. Okay, as simple as that. What I wanted to say, though, is this. Stephen, I've said multiple times, of course Deion's specter, Deion's aura, Deion's presence has something to do with this. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the process that has nothing to do with on the football field. When teams are evaluating Shedeur from January, February, March, April, all of that comes along with him, the people who are with him, the people who are going to be his inner circle.
So apparently, it's quite a conspiracy on a large scale. No one's got the full picture of everything that went down. Shedeur Sanders was projected to be a top 5 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. He was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year and had NFL scouts drooling. But when draft night came, Shedeur didn't hear his name called on 5th round pick 144. There had to be something going wrong.
The real reason why they're treating Shedeur Sanders the way they are is because of his contract. Shedeur Sanders has a clause in his contract called prime equity. This means he gets a higher percentage of his jersey numbers, anywhere they use his name or his likeness, similar to an NIL deal. And they don't want other players to do that. This is why they let him fall so low in the draft. So he falls to a bad team and he has less likely of a chance to succeed. Okay, so you're probably thinking, what makes this contract different from the other contracts? Well, the difference is everybody does get a percentage of the jersey sales that they get and the merchandise that they sell, but everyone in the league has to split that. So you can be the highest paid, the biggest star in the league, you're still going to get the same amount of merchandise pay from the man who's on the bench, who's at the end of the 53-man roster. In layman's terms, imagine you're working a job and you get a tip, but you have to split it with everybody you work with. Exactly, it doesn't seem fair. So he put in his contract that no matter what they got going on, I get my money, and they ain't like that. The NFL doesn't want players to be business partners. They want them to be on the field like them other people on the field. You feel me? Yeah, they don't want business partners. They want ownership of you. They want you to be pawns so they can trade and sell you. They don't want you to have a brain. So he came in the league doing some smart shit, and they ain't like that. So now they trying to punish him. But he walks with God, so you can't punish a man like that. Don't blame me. It's science.
Same stuff experienced by Colin Kaepernick, who many believe was blackballed after protesting police brutality by kneeling during the national anthem.
Jay Cutler didn't tell anybody he wanted to play football. They called him up, gave him $10 million, and not to be a backup, but to be a starter. So, yeah, absolutely right, Doug Ballin. Thanks for coming around for what I said from the very beginning.
I'll tell you this, Shannon. Oftentimes, people will treat you the way you allow them to treat you. I've always said this about NFL players. By far, the weakest union. They're not committed to each other. This is why they've been run over forever by the owners and why this happens.
True.
So I blame the players for not being willing. And I get it. Guys, they're so afraid and they make you so that you can be replaced.
3 years non-guaranteed
and all
contract.
that and non-guaranteed, and I get it. And they don't have, but they've allowed this to happen to themselves. They've allowed this to happen, even in this case, with Colin Kaepernick because there could have been a situation at some other point, but guys are so afraid to really hurt the owners where it matters most, which is pocketbook. They always say, well, they're rich and they don't care and they'll sit out and they don't. No. They're in business for a reason, and it's about money.
After kneeling during the national anthem in 2016 to protest racial injustice and police brutality, Kaepernick was not signed by any NFL team following his departure from the 49ers. Despite being only 29 and in his physical prime, no team offered him a contract, even as a backup, despite lesser quarterbacks securing roster spots. Kaepernick filed a collusion lawsuit against the NFL, alleging owners conspired to keep him out of the league, which was settled out of court.
So Kaepernick is here because the owners know the players are weak and won't do anything about it. And this is where we are. I think this is like one of the worst things. And not that Kaepernick deserves this or a job, or just from the idea of a guy who hasn't done anything wrong other than that's the part. The other guys who took part in the protest, they're working. It can't be that. Stop it with fans don't want to buy tickets. No, they're looking at him. He was the face of it, and we're going to punish you, and we're going to tell you, and you're right.
An Al Jazeera article notes that Kaepernick's exclusion was not about his skill, but his activism, making him a textbook case of blackballing.
But while Kaepernick may be paying for his protest with his career, the trend he began continues without him. This week, Seth DeValve, a player with the Cleveland Browns, became the first white player to kneel during the national anthem.
To see so many players unite, that's what America is all about. It's about coming together and standing for something, and it's for the greater cause.
Kaepernick's supporters are calling for a boycott of NFL games until a team signs him. But as the clock runs out, the chances are Kaepernick's protest was probably his final play.
Cam points here is sharp. He's saying Shedeur's bold, confident persona, some might call it its swagger, rubbed NFL teams the wrong way. Shedeur skipped drills at the scouting combine, limited his interviews to just 7 teams, and approached the draft like a recruitment process rather than a job interview. According to the NFL Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson, teams wanted to make an example out of him for his untraditional approach.
And I'll tell you this much here, what I heard from someone that's in the NFL, that the NFL told other, don't draft him, do not draft him. We're gonna make an example out of him. And this came from a very good source, And he said that, I won't say who, somebody called the Cleveland Browns and said, don't do that. Draft him. Yep, draft him. Don't do that. Because they weren't going to draft him either. They weren't going to draft him. They were forced into drafting him because somebody made a call to them, said, and I say, when I say this is a NFL side source for sure, so this is not here. So look, one thing about it is, and I'll just say it, they don't like when guys have brands, especially black players. And that's mostly us with the brand. We kind of, some guys are flashy and all that kind of stuff. They don't like that. This kid, Fred, I don't think you knew this. He had already made $17 million from a car deal that he already signed. A car deal. He had $17 million already for that. Then he had another 14, I think, from a was it a shoe, Nike or some shoe deal. So he was good with money-wise, but I know he wants to play in the National Football League for sure.
So how does he do that? I mean, Cleveland picked him. I find it fascinating, Eric. You're saying somebody even called the Browns and said, don't do that.
Yeah, somebody called the Browns and said.
So what was the objective? He doesn't get picked? He's an undrafted free agent?
That's exactly what's going to happen. They were going to have him, he was not going to get drafted, to basically show you this is what happens when you do this. I mean, look, Fred, the NFL got all kind of power. They do all kind of stuff. You know that, and I know it too. But no, they were not going to draft him. And like I said, when I said it came from a good source, it came from a very, very good source. They said they weren't going to draft him. I like it because when I saw it, when he went to the second round, I said, I said it out loud. They're not going to draft him. They're going to make an example out of him. I knew it.
Cam Newton's perspective is unique because he's been there. As a black quarterback who's faced scrutiny for his own bold personality, Cam knows the tightrope Shedeur is walking. On his podcast, he warned Shedeur about NFL's different monster, a league where young QBs, especially black ones, are held to a higher standard. Kim said, some people may not like it. You gotta be fine with that.
I was watching it. I wanted to see certain things out of Shedeur. I want to see you take command. I want to see you live up to the hype, because if you're asking me, and I ain't seen no numbers, but I seen the bird's eye view of like, yo, it's a lot of people in Charlotte, North Carolina that were wearing Brownie jerseys.
And not any Brownie jerseys.
Hello.
12.
Stay with me. What the people had to say, Peggy?
But the people had to say a lot. And speaking of his jerseys, I think Shedeur is leading with jersey sales. $250 million made in jersey sales. But a lot of people had to say, you know, even Cleveland Browns tweeted, all in due time. Emmitt Smith had something to say. Shedeur is everything I knew he was. Jamie Foxx, no better feeling in the feeling of validation. Hard work pays off. LeBron James jumped in there.
LeBron James!
And then also none other than his father, Coach Prime. God is so good. Oh yeah, what now? And finished off with, yes, Lord. Yes. So, Shedeur Sanders still sits as the fourth string quarterback. How should the Browns evaluate this play moving into the next game?
Things are going to get interesting in Cleveland. Why is it going to get interesting? Is because now what they would have thought it to be such an easy decision, it ain't that. Create competitive commotion. Not only does this to the fans, y'all seen Shedeur? Yeah, boy, that boy look good. He talk around the innermost being of Cleveland.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you this.
Talk to me.
You start going into that locker room.
Yeah.
Kim's not just calling out Shedeur, he's calling out the NFL's systematic biases. Historically, black quarterbacks like Randall Cunningham, Steve McNair, and even Kim himself had to be exceptional to break through. They were often labeled as athletes rather than passers, pushed to other positions, or criticized for their demeanor. Shedeur, who's more of a pocket passer than a dual threat, doesn't fit that stereotype, but his confidence and Deion's influence seem to have made him a target.
And what did you get from Shedeur's final preseason game?
I think the real question is, do you think you belong on this team? I don't think you should be asking Shedeur that. I think you need to be asking old Coach Stefanski that. I think you need to be asking management that. I think you need to be asking ownership that. Because what it's given like, what are we doing? It's getting to a point where it's becoming abundantly clear that there's a motive in Cleveland.
Kim's advice to Shedeur is clear. Let your game do the talking. But the bigger question is, will the NFL ever change? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Should Shedeur adapt, or is the league the problem? And do you think that he'll prove the doubters wrong with the Browns?